Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Thursday, June the 4th. Overall markets pulling back. AVGO earnings in the after hours, basically pulling back and tanking the overall markets. SPY down here in the pre-market. Qs down about 1.26%. The semis are pulling back here as well. So coming into yesterday, at least on the SPY, we saw most pops being shorted, and then we're a little bit cautious just because the SPY and Qs were right at a key technical level. So we showed weakness really all day, and then of course now you can see in the after hours we're finally getting a little bit of a pullback here on some of the major indices. We do have key technical levels. We're still bullish on the weekly and daily, which we'll talk about here, but at least for the hourly chart we are trying to flip bearish. But yeah, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Good morning. What's up, Kelvin, Victor? Good morning, B Roots. Let me pull up the economic calendar here as well. Good morning, Maria, Wisdom. Good morning, Knight, Andy, Jose, Jean, Lamont, Vate. Good morning, Martin. What's up, Cinna, J-Tan, Gerald, Z Norris. What's up, Will, Ken, Robert. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's pull up the economic calendar here. There's not really too much going on. Yesterday, we had a little bit of red folder news, but ultimately, really the news that we've had hasn't impacted the market as much. We've have much bigger news events, something like AVGO earnings that is impacting the market a lot more. At least for today, we have unemployment that's going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Friday, we do have average hourly earnings, non-farm enrollment change, plus the unemployment rate, which is going to be tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As for some earnings, as you can see here, AVGO, one of the main names, as you can see, really solid push towards the upside, followed up by the earnings now dropping down about 15%. So, really bearish reaction based off the earnings. Still technically bullish here on the weekly time frame, but on the daily, pretty big reaction down about 14%. So, for earnings season, this is one of the more bearish reactions that we've had, and that's why there's a bigger sell off on the broader indices and specifically on the tech side. So AVGO, we had a nice breakout, followed up by, now you can see we're right back down into that 408, which is really the area that we broke out from, as you can see here. With that being said, let's hop straight into the charts, starting off with the overall market. So as you can see here, if we look at this on the daily time frame, right, let's pull up some of the EMAs here as well, just to give us a little bit of a more bigger picture, right? The SPY, as you can see, we're still bullish, right? This is our first red day on the SPY. We are actually just coming back down into key retest level. So this is just a very minor pullback. You can see the daily chart very much still bullish here. Weekly chart, of course, very bullish as well. If you go on to the futures chart, similar thesis, right? Very bullish here on the futures. Every single dip has been bought up. Higher lows have been made in the markets. Yesterday or the day previous, we're up about 9 days in a row. And this is our first pullback down in towards where our previous retest level. So for the ES, if we kind of zoom in here now, what I'd like to see is really the hold of this down close candle, right? This is our previous all-time highs. You can see we have multiple touches here as well. I would like to see the hold of this 5820 for a continuation towards the upside here on the daily chart. Right, this is going to be key here. This is just our retest on the daily. If we go into the hourly time frame here as well, very key technical level on the ES. Let me just actually go back onto this. I have a lot of drawings marked out, but this is basically our exact area, right? Our high or low on the daily time frame, on the hourly time frame here as well. You can see yesterday we kind of started to see a slowdown of momentum once we broke underneath this kind of hourly higher low. But right now we're at a daily higher low. This is basically our hourly double bottom. So let's see if the markets can bounce off our 75.20 for continuation back towards the upside, right? We can also do kind of like an undershoot, reclaim setup back towards the upside here as well. What we don't really want to see is right a candle close underneath on the daily time frame underneath this 75.20. If that's the case, then we can see right a little bit of a bigger push towards the downside, but overall, right, the market's still very bullish, right? This is just a very minor pullback on the higher time frames. If you're looking at this on the weekly chart as well, potentially we could see a weekly bearish close and just a very minor pullback. But for the overall markets, we're still very much bullish, right? If we, let's say, drop underneath our 75.20 here today, and we have another bearish candle close, then that could be a bigger pullback down in towards the 20, and then the markets will start to slow down just a little bit. Every single time we break underneath our previous candle low, you can see that's usually when the markets start to slow down just a little bit, right? Another break underneath that previous candle low. Now you can expect some momentum to slow down, some of the swings to start basing here as well. And then for the day trades, right, we're just going to be open to trading the upside and the downside. So as I mentioned, overall, the market's still very much bullish. We're going to maintain a bullish bias if we're above this 75.20. If we break underneath, then we're going to be a little bit more neutral, still bullish, but we're going to be more cautious. Let's go on to the QQQ. You can see the Q's very much bullish here as well, right? We're on the daily time frame. Every single dip so far is being bought up. The next kind of retest level on the Q's is actually all the way back down towards that 720. Right now we're kind of right at this 9 EMA, right at this 730. So we'll see if we can get some sort of relief bounce here off that 730. But on the daily time frame, we can come all the way back down, bounce at that 730. We can come back down and towards that 720 and build a higher low off this level here as well. And the markets would still be intact for continuation towards the upside. If you go on to the NQ chart, the key levels that we have marked out, similar thesis, right? Daily higher lows are being built. The key levels that we have marked out is our 29,750. Right now, we're right at this 9 EMA. This is our first initial pullback. If we're looking at this on the daily, we could see a bounce here off the 9 for a pushback towards the upside, or we could potentially pull back down in towards our retest level here on the daily chart, which is that 29,750. As I mentioned, similar thing to the Qs, right? We can see that daily higher low be built off that 29,750. So as you can see right here, overall markets still very much bullish for continuation. If you go on to the lower time frames, what are some of the levels that we have today? As you can see, what we're going to have marked out is basically the level that we're currently at, or 735. Other levels all the way back down in towards that 725. So for the Qs coming to market open, I would like to see the overall markets a little bit of reaction. Let's see if buyers can step in for a potential pushback towards the upside. If we break underneath that 730, our next level of support is going to be back down in towards really the 728 and all the way down in towards that 725 that I mentioned on the daily time frame. So we'll keep an eye out on the 735. This is a key level here. If we go into the NQ chart, this is basically our previous retest level here as well. So for the NQ, basically similar thesis. Let's see if we can hold this basically 3,200 level. That's going to be key. If we can't hold this, the next major key level is going to be that 29,800. So for the NQ, let's see if we can build up an hourly higher low off our 3,200. If we break underneath, and now let's see, we use this as a retest, then we're going to most likely come all the way back down in towards that 29,800 and build up a daily higher low on the higher time frames. So With that being said, right, the higher time frames is still very much intact, right? We have the weeklies bullish, the dailies bullish. Now the hourly time frame is slowly starting to break underneath key levels. So with that being said, when the hourly flips, we're just going to be a little bit more cautious. We're either going to right wait for the hourly to flip back bullish to go look long, or now for day trades, right, we can be open to playing both sides of the markets. With that being said, let's take a look at the SMH here. So as you can see, the SMH is very much still bullish, right? Ended up having a pretty strong candle close, but now as you can see, we're gapping down here about 3.7%, and we're just coming back to the area that we broke out from coming into this week. As for the SMH, the next key area I would say is actually right at the area that we're at, which is that 612. So you can see daily higher lows are being built, hourly higher lows are being built as well. This is the area I like to see buyers step in. 613, this is the retest that we broke out from earlier of this week. Now let's see if we can use this area as support for continuation towards the upside. So this 613 here is going to be key. If we turn back on the drawings, I guess I have quite a few drawings here now, but the main level here is that 613 on the hourly chart. If buyers can step in, we can see a mean reversion back up in towards our previous day lows here on some of the semiconductors. If we reject, hold underneath that 613, we can see a bigger push down in towards our 590s. Or if we come up, kind of reject off this level, keep an eye out for a potential pop and fade off that previous day lows. But key level today, keep an eye out on this 613 here on the SMH today. As for the IWM, this one's actually still holding up fairly nicely, not really dropping compared to the overall indices. Keep an eye on the IWM previous all-time highs retest above our 287. If we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, we're forming this nice hourly flag pattern. Keep an eye out on the break back above our previous day highs for a potential move up in towards our 293. All right, with that being said, let's head on to some of the major tech names that we have coming into today. As the market is pulling back here, we'll now be keeping an eye out on all the tickers that are showing some relative strength, right? That's going to be key moving forward. Whenever the markets do pull back, the names that are holding up are the names that are going to be the first ones that lead the markets back higher. So with that being said, if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. All right, what's up, everyone? Let's go on to a few tickers. Let's talk about Tesla here. We do have the SpaceX IPO coming up. That is, I'm pretty sure, coming next week. So that's going to be a pretty big, more of a bigger news catalyst for Tesla and the rest of the markets. As for Tesla, really not too much to talk about here. We kind of are forming this wedge pattern on the higher time frames. Nice buyer step in yesterday. Ultimately ended up rejecting kind of closer to the top of the range, and now we're right back into the middle of the range that we have marked out. So not really too much to talk about on Tesla. Nice bounce yesterday just to be rejected off our key levels. If we're looking at this on the lower time frames, I have quite a few levels marked out. But for Tesla, let's just get rid of those. Key levels that we can have marked out is just going to be the area that we broke out from. And we have our previous day lows, which happens to be our 416. So pretty neutral week so far on Tesla. Not really too much has happened. If we want to see longs above our 424, potential rejection here off that 424 for continuation down towards that 416. As for, yeah, I mean, there's not really too much to talk about here on Tesla. It's just kind of ranging. And then the higher time frames also ranging as well. Let's talk about Nvidia. Nvidia, really nice bounce off our 210, followed up by now the market's starting to pull back here as well. And Nvidia is right back at that 210 level. So The weekly was shaping up fairly bullish, nice bounce off that 210. Now we're most likely going to close bearish right back down in towards our previous all-time highs. So for Nvidia, seems like a pretty big rejection off these levels. We do have a nice daily higher low being built. Now for Nvidia, right, we're still bullish above our 210, but less bullish because now we're having this pretty big rejection off this area. So we can still build a higher low here on the daily, but we'd like to see it hold now more so of this like 210. Instead of making a daily higher low, now it's most likely going to be this like daily, right, double bottom, and then potentially move back towards the upside. So less bullish here now on Nvidia, still intact on the higher time frames above your previous all-time highs, but now it's most likely going to take a little bit longer to set up. So what I would like to see on Nvidia is now really the hold of this 210, right, potential daily double bottom for a push back towards the upside. But for Nvidia, right, 210 is going to be our key level still. If we break underneath our 210, right, expect a little bit of a pullback underneath that 210, but we could potentially do something like this, right? Like an undershoot and then build up a weekly higher low still for continuation back towards the upside. Regardless on Nvidia, now we're going to be a little bit more patient. This one, nice pop, faded yesterday, drop here as well. Key levels that we're going to have marked out, last week's lows. And we can also mark out that 210 area. For today, keep an eye out on a potential like pop and fade for a continuation towards the downside, or maybe even shorts underneath 210 for a push lower. If we want to see a bounce play, right, bounce off 210, or now be like the reclaim back above that 216. Let's talk about AMD. AMD, nice push up in towards our all-time highs. Let's turn back on the EMAs. As you can see, nice bounce off the 9, continuation towards the upside. Now AMD key level is going to be our 520. 520 is going to be key on the higher time frames. We're actually just retesting our previous all-time highs. So for NVIDIA, for AMD, one of our key levels that we have marked out, we can just mark out this 520. Multiple touches here. This is our high that we created on that breakout level. Now for AMD, let's see if we can bounce off this area for continuation higher. So the structure, this is just kind of like a break and retest on the hourly time frame for continuation. If we break underneath, that is a sign that AMD can start slowing down just a little bit. But on the higher time frames, AMD is just very much bullish. Buyer step in today, we can see a push right back up and towards our all-time highs. So keep an eye out on our key levels today, where we're going to have marked out previous day lows, which is our 525. Other levels that we can have marked out here as well is going to be that 520, which is the area that we broke out from. So for AMD, if we want to see some upside, potentially the bounce play off that 520, the reclaim back above that previous day low here is in play. The only way I'm interested in a little bit more downside on AMD is underneath that 516 and a potential flip. AMD is definitely not really one of the tickers to short. There's a lot more other names that are relatively weak, but AMD just made a brand new all-time highs. As for Apple, this one consolidating a little bit more here now after hitting our all-time highs. You can see if we're on the hourly time frame, this one's still holding up very nicely. So Apple's actually green in the pre-market compared to the overall indices, which are down. So for Apple, we can kind of just draw this range here. If we want to see some upside, we need to see the break, of course, above our previous day highs for continuation. Currently, we're kind of in between the middle of the range, so we're going to be a little bit more cautious here on Apple. As for Google, Google is coming down into a key technical level. I do like Google quite a bit. So Google, this is going to be your break and retest here on the weekly time frame. So you can just mark out this whole general area. This is our higher low on the weekly and also on the daily. So the 340 area is going to be key for a Google bounce back towards the upside. If we're looking at this on the daily time frame here, you can see a little bit of a rejection once you can see the 9 cross back above the 20 EMA, right? A little bit more sellers stepped in. We also filled this daily gap here now as well. So for Google, as I mentioned, we're just coming back down in towards our retest level. 360 in this 350 general area looks good for a Google pushback towards the upside, right? This is our weekly higher low. This will also be our daily higher low as well. This is where we gapped up with earnings. So for Google, right, Google's in a very key technical area. Keep an eye on that previous all-time highs. If you're interested in Google, more so of a reversal now on the daily, so don't expect a V-shaped recovery. But Google's in a key technical spot, right? 350 is a good general area. As for intraday, right, you don't really have to worry about intraday price action on this one. Not really something you want to day trade regardless. But for Google, key levels is going to be that previous day lows. Break underneath that previous day lows, you can get that push down and towards that 350. Let's talk about some other tickers here. Microsoft's in a really key spot as well. So end up having a nice pop on Microsoft coming into this week, followed up by a little bit of a rejection. And now we're right back at the area that we broke out from. So as I mentioned, now what I like to see is Microsoft build up these daily higher lows. So we have daily higher lows are being built. Right now we're kind of undershooting it. And now what I like to see is the reclaim back above our 430 for a potential move back towards the upside. So for Microsoft, 430 is going to be key. We also just filled that daily gap that we had. So what I like to see on the weekly time frame at least is if buyers can step in basically right off that 430. For a pushback towards the upside. So for Microsoft, this one showing a little bit of strength here with the overall markets dropping as well. So that is something to keep in mind. So for Microsoft here now, key level, as I mentioned, 430. So we like to see the 430 flip for a pushback up and towards our 438. Another possible area above our 438 for continuation higher here as well. As for Meta, this one bouncing off key levels of support. Really not too much to talk about on Meta, but key levels that we have marked out just draw this general area. Now a potential bounce play here off the low of the range for a push back up and towards our 622. As for Amazon, this one's pulling back here as well. And keep an eye on Amazon on the weekly time frame. We're just gonna dig a little bit deeper back into that previous all-time high. So Amazon's still bullish, but taking a lot longer to set up here now. Last week we kind of bounced off this area. If we kind of zoom out, this whole general area is going to be key, right? As long as you can maintain above that 240, continuation back up and towards your all-time highs. And then for Netflix, this one is currently dropping, building up lower highs, and every pop is being shorted. Next levels on Netflix is just going to be that previous day highs general area. If we do want to see any sort of buyer step in, right, we need to see the flip back above our previous day highs for a potential move back towards the upside. So a lot of these tech names that we're currently looking at are pulling back into key technical areas. The only one that's ultimately the most bullish is, of course, some of the semis, which is AMD. The rest of the Mag 7 names are pulling back here. We can keep an eye out on a Google, like a break and retest here on the daily and even weekly time frame. But a lot of these ones are going to take a little bit longer to set up. So don't expect them. If you're swing trading, don't buy weeklies. You can buy a couple weeks out or even a few months out. Google's in like a good area for like a dip ad, right? 350 is a good ad. And then if it dropped even more, better, right? 330 would be good for, right, just more longer term if you're interested in shares. As for everything else, right, we'll go on to a few other tickers here now as well. So yeah, if you guys do have any charts, any tickers, we'll go over some for the next kind of 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll get ready for market open. NVIDIA is only good for swings at key levels, otherwise intraday. Intraday is actually not that bad on NVIDIA. The higher time frames hasn't been as clear, so the swings haven't had too much continuation. Intraday on NVIDIA actually has pretty good volume. Contracts aren't as expensive. You have expirations 3 times a week, so you can get some pretty nice moves on NVIDIA. Palantir and Reddit I'll check out Palantir and Reddit here in a second. Yeah, let's talk about AVGO. So this one recently had earnings. This was key yesterday. So AVGO, it's one of the bigger semiconductors, right? You have a $2.2 trillion market cap. I think it's the second biggest semiconductor besides Nvidia. But you can see this one down about 15%. That's why we had a pretty big reaction with the overall markets. So for AVGO, right back down into that retest level. As you can see, we're about to have a pretty big daily gap, gapping down right into the area that we broke out from, which is this 410-ish general area. So if you go back onto the hourly time frame, you can see for AVGO now, let's just kind of remove a couple key levels here. Really the only levels that matter now is just going to be the low of the range, which for AVGO we're currently at, and then we also have our 440. So the main levels here is 440 along with our 400. Can we see some more downside on AVGO? We could, but now we're just right back into a key level support. So we could see a potential kind of like an undershoot. Maybe AVGO wants to drop even lower and potentially fill this gap here. That is a possible scenario. But we are in a key level support. I would be very cautious of shorting something like an AVGO, even though it's very bearish. Maybe you can be looking for a pop and fade right off the bat for just a quick momentum move towards the downside, like a flush coming to market open. But I'd be a little bit more cautious. This is just right back into our key level support. We could see some sort of overshoot, reclaim, and then like a move back towards the upside. So for AVGO, I would just be like hands off on this one today. Coming into today, you can be looking for shorts underneath that 400 for a continuation down in towards that daily gap. You could also be looking for some sort of rejection, reclaim setup for a mini pushback towards the upside. Day one earnings, as I mentioned, haven't had too great of opportunities, at least this earnings season. A lot of the moves have happened a couple days after earnings. As for Oracle, this one, if you're looking at this on the daily, Oracle is very bullish, right? Looks good. Higher lows are being built here on the daily time frame. Oracle now, what we like to see is daily higher low be built. We could even see a potential pullback down in towards 200, which in this case, I don't really want to see. I like to see kind of this 9 EMA, preferably hold this like 225 area, maybe build up this like daily flag pattern for this continuation back up and towards 250 and above. If we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, key levels on Oracle is going to be this 225. That's going to be key. Other levels that we have marked out as well is our previous day lows. So did quite a bit, kind of filled this daily gap that we created. And now you can see, key level is going to be this 225. So reclaim back above that 225, continuation back up and towards that 235, rejection, push right back towards the downside. Palantir setting up here as well. If we're looking at this one, we're kind of ranging more than anything on Palantir. We did reject off that 160 after having a nice bounce coming into this week. I would consider Palantir, if you're looking at the past 20 to 40 sessions, I'd say we're more neutral. Or we are kind of building up a daily higher low, but I'd say we're more neutral than anything. If you're looking at this on the weekly, I'd just be more cautious, right? It just seems like consolidation for the whole of 2026 on Palantir. So until we can break above our 160, I'll be a little bit more hands off. That's going to be the key breakout level. As you can see, we actually rejected earlier into the week, and now we're back inside the middle of the range. So I'll be a little bit more patient on Palantir. As for MU, we'll talk about MU, SNDK, Intel, a couple memory names. MU is the one to buy the dip on. So key levels for MU is going to be our 1000 key psych, which is our daily gap. And MU is still very bullish, right? Probably the most bullish ticker if we get rid of a couple key areas. The level that we have is our 980. This is the only one that's kind of above our weekly or last week's highs, If we're looking at this one, we end up gapping up continuation. MU key spot is basically our 1000 key psych. So right in a key technical area, 980. Keep an eye on that 980 bounce here on MU for a continued push towards the upside. This is our daily gap as well on the higher time frames. Plus, that's going to be our 9 EMA. So if you are looking to buy a potential dip, right, keep an eye out on MU 980 for continuation back towards the upside, right? Daily higher low, hourly. This is our hourly higher low here as well. So MU looks good, right? If it can come back down towards that 980, buyers can step in. You can be looking for a trade back up and towards your all-time highs with a stop underneath that 980 for continuation. So keep an eye out on MU coming to market open. Other levels that we have as well. Now we can just mark out, right, that previous day lows. That's going to be key. Other levels we can mark out here is going to be our basically 1,000 key psych levels. So for MU, as I mentioned, right, the best case scenario actually would be that 980 bounce or the reclaim back above our 10 at 1010 for continuation back up and towards our previous day lows. SNDK, so memories are still very much bullish, right? We can see some other tickers are pulling back here. Memories just holding up very nicely. Key levels that we have on SNDK is just going to be that previous all-time highs, right? It's basically that 1700. Maintain above that 1700, continuation higher. Only way you're interested in any sort of downside underneath that 1700 for potential flip. As for Intel, this one has been one of the weaker semiconductors within the past month. Still bullish though. We are just creating this higher time frame, kind of like wedge pattern forming. So for Intel, you can see nice push higher. Now we're just consolidating. A nice pop yesterday, but now we're just going to fill this daily gap. So for Intel, we like to see the bounce off 105 for a pushback towards the upside. Just be a little bit more patient on Intel. This one's just consolidating more than anything. Yesterday, we ended up rejecting right off that 116 consolidation level support, turned into now resistance, and we're all the way back down in towards that previous day lows. WDC holding up still nicely here as well. Every dip is being bought up. Key levels for WDC is just going to be that 560 hold for a continuation higher. So the memories are really the only names that are holding up quite a bit here. If we look at DRAM, DRAM, which is the memory ETF, you can see every single dip has just been bought up, right? This one is going to be our daily gap that we created this week. We'd just like to see it bounce off this 9 EMA for a push towards the upside here as well. When would I be a little bit more cautious on some of the memory names is when we start seeing a lot weaker price action. Let's say we start breaking underneath key levels, break underneath this daily gap, right? Break underneath this 9 EMA here as well, right? That's when I'd be a little bit more patient on some of the memories, but overall, right, MU is still very much bullish. SNDK, WDC, the memories are still holding up very nicely. So just a very minor pullback. We'll see if a daily higher low along with an hourly higher low is built here today. As for a few other tickers, right, TSM still holding up nicely. Key level is going to be that 420. Other levels, or sorry, other names. Marvel's pulling back. So we end up having a nice pop on Marvel. This is a good area, right? 280s. This is basically the area that we broke out from the day previous. Sorry, this 290 and basically this 280 general area. Key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be exactly like this 280. So coming into today, right, what we like to see now is, right, the reclaim back above that 290. You're going to be waiting for like one of two scenarios here on Marvel. Right, the higher low being built on the hourly time frame for a pushback towards the all-time highs, stop underneath this 290 for continuation back towards the upside. Or let's say if it like pop and fade, then we'd have to wait for most likely now this like earnings, sorry, not this earnings gap, this news candle gap, and look for some sort of setup where it'd be like a double bottom here on the hourly chart for a pushback towards the upside. So Marvel, I do like this hourly higher low being built. Keep an eye on the reclaim back above 290 for a pushback towards the upside. Another name that is in a very key technical spot here as well as Dell. This one very similar to an AMD setup. Not quite similar, but very similar in the fact that it's right at a daily gap. You want to see something similar and buyers step in right off that 400 key psych. So if we're looking at Dell, keep an eye out for a potential overshoot past this 403 and this 400, buyers step in, continuation back up and towards your all-time highs. So for Dell, as you can see, we're right in a key technical area, which is going to be this 400. If now it breaks underneath, you want to see the reclaim and push back towards the upside, right? You would like to see buyers step in off this 400, could wick underneath on the daily, but you like to see the buyers step in. So for on the hourly time frame, right, as I mentioned, very key technical level, which is our 404. I'd like to see if any sort of rejection occurs, right? You can maybe be looking for even a short potentially right off the bat, but I'll just be a little bit more cautious. I don't expect this full gap to fill. I'd much rather wait for a break, a failed breakdown, right? Reclaim, and then you could be looking for this trade scenario back towards the upside above that 404. So keep an eye on this for Dell for a pushback towards the upside here today. As for a few other tickers, let's take a look at Now. This one pulled back nicely. I do like Now quite a bit. So pulled back down and towards that 113, right? This is a nice name, right? We had that nice breakout right at that 9 EMA here now, right? We also are defending kind of this daily gap. Let's see if we can get that pushback towards the upside here. Key levels that we have marked out is our couple key areas actually. Let me just refine some of the levels. Previous low, and we also have our pre-market lows, or sorry, after hours lows, which is that 113. So at least for today, you're going to keep an eye on that 125 if you want to see some upside back above this 125. If you want to see a potential bounce play, we're kind of in between the middle of the range, potentially maybe some sort of bounce off or 114. But I like to see most likely now this reclaim back above this 125. Yeah, coming into market open, we also did have some orange folder news events. Unemployment claims came in a little bit higher than expectations, not by a lot, but overall markets currently right into a key technical spot. So the game plan coming into today, what we'd like to see is a mini bounce coming to market open. As you can see, we're opening up well underneath our previous day lows, right? If we want to short, I'm not. All right, the stream should be back on. If you guys do have any issues with the stream, you guys can just refresh it and everything should be good. All right, perfect. So yeah, coming into market open here today, as I mentioned, the game plan is looking for an hourly higher low. So on the daily chart, we're bullish. We're looking for a bounce play coming to market open here today. So coming into today, key levels that I have is going to be this 435. Right, that's kind of the main level here, 435. I'd like to see the break back above and a potential reversal here in the markets. For the SPY, we are at a very key technical level here as well. I'd like to see buyers step in off this 750 for a push towards the upside. Right, we could see a potential kind of short right off the bat, but if buyers can step in, be careful of this kind of reversal back towards the upside because we're still bullish on the higher time frames. So for SPY, for Qs, still bullish on the higher time frames. SPY is not as bearish just because we're underneath our previous day lows, but previous day low isn't far away. We very much well could reclaim and just continue right back towards the upside. As for my main watches coming to market open here, I'm going to keep an eye out on AMD. AMD, we are at an hourly kind of higher low here, plus it's a retest level that we broke out from. So keep an eye out on AMD reversal back towards the upside. Some of my other favorite names are MU. Bounce play here off that 980 and also potentially the reclaim for a pushback towards the upside. The trades today are going to be intraday reversals. So we're underneath our previous day lows. We're underneath our previous day highs, of course, but we're looking for a intraday reversal and a higher time frame break and retest. So it might not set up perfectly today where we just kind of rally back towards the highs, right? We could kind of like pop, fade, and then bounce off that 980 for a reversal back towards the highs. We could very much well, right, first 5 minutes push higher and then maybe just gravitate back up and towards our previous day lows and potentially kind of reject. So today's more so of a day where we're going to be open to playing both sides. I'm still more interested in the long side and looking to trade this back towards our previous day lows and above. So that's going to be the thesis. until the markets really start to show weakness, right? This is our first red day on the indices, and we basically even closed bullish, right? We're just seeing a little bit of reaction here in the pre-market, plus with the AVGO earnings, right? I do expect, right, potential move back up and towards our previous day lows here today. So we're going to be looking for some upside, uh, really focusing on names that are the most bullish, which are really the memory names, and we have a couple semis as well. As for the rest of the tickers, some softwares really pushing up higher compared to the overall market. So the Qs is dropping down about 1% in the pre-market, right? Microsoft is up. You have like Palantir's up. A few other names are up here today. So the names for day trading, at least, we're going to be keeping an eye on the names that are the strongest coming to market open. And then, of course, we're going to be looking for semis, more so of a longer term day trade, right? The day trades today are going to take a little bit longer to develop because we're underneath our previous day lows, and they're more so a break and retest on the hourly time frame. So keep an eye out for those ones. The game plan's still intact. Look for this dip for a potential trade back towards the upside. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to call it a day here. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. And with that being said, I will see you guys all tomorrow. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.